for Seven Figure Women Book Club. Today we're discussing Richard Branson and specifically his book, The Virgin Way. So Ellen was talking about today is October 11th, and Hurricane Irma came through and literally devastated Richard Branson's island, Necker Island. And Ellen was just bringing us up to date on Richard Branson's comments on that on Tim Ferriss's podcast. So I'll turn it over to you, Ellen.
I highly recommend listening to this podcast. I think it was produced a few days ago.
Okay.
But Tim directly asked Richard, you know, what was it like to live through that hurricane, which was a hurricane category 5, 6, category God's wrath. I don't know what they would call it, but it was something that devastated the Caribbean.
Oh yeah.
And he was talking about, and he was talking about how people are going to turn to him as a leader. You know, how do we keep our mindset strong and positive that we're all going to get through this? And it's an excellent podcast. And it just brought me back to his book. I've only been maybe halfway through. But I got to admit, you know, if I'm not in real estate, I'm like, I kind of want to work for the Virgin companies. I like his leadership style. I like how he has a very team-centered, very person-centered approach to leadership with an emphasis on fun. And I thought that was fantastic. I think every leader should follow that example, but they're not all going to because they're all different. And so I think with this particular book, is two things. One, you really get an insight into how his personal philosophy in approaching how he is a leader, how he leads his company, and how he approaches people, which I think is critical to his success. And I think as a parent, I love the anecdotes that he's providing to us about his own parents and how they approached his upbringing and how it made him the man he is today. Did you guys pick up on that? Some of the parental anecdotes that he had with his mom, especially. Yep. And I think it created a lot of why his mindset is strong and as open as it is because of how his parents approached things that didn't go right, things that were not dangerous to undertake, but adventurous. It created
they're entrepreneurs also, so they have that entrepreneurial spirit, you know, the not say what can't work, but more the approach of how can it work, what can, you know, and they really let him fail or let him try things and didn't try to just protect him.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, just like there's a well-known anecdote I think that he tells about his mom, how she dropped him off like 2 miles away from the house and told him.
Wait, Ellen, we're looking at your umbrella. Hold on, we're looking at your umbrella.
Because I'm chewing.
Okay.
But listen, I want to hear from you ladies because I love to hear your point of view, and we all get something out of the books that we're reading that's a little bit different from everybody else. So I'd love to hear what you guys have to say.
Who wants to go next?
You want me to go first? Bianca, do you want to go first?
You go, Teresa.
Well, one of my favorite quotes that I've gotten from the book so far, which I've already posted this, is live as if you were to die tomorrow, learn as if you will live forever. I love that. Great leaders are always great simplifiers. KISS, he goes by his mom. I think he got that from his mother. It's keep it simple, stupid. And he talks about a thank you note, handwritten, really stands out. Write a personal mission statement of for yourself or for your company, like what is your goal? And it needs to be the simple, stupid. It's not, I want to make money. It's the real reason and the feeling behind what we're doing. So, you know, in real estate, it's my mission is to be the expert for my client to make the process as smooth as possible and make the most money for the people that I'm helping. You know, it's just something like that. Leadership is the ability to hide your panic from others. Always ask, how can it be done differently to make it better? Because people get caught in this is how we do it. And I think that's a lot of entrepreneurs always think outside of the box, where people get stuck in their box. The customer service, let's see. The customer service if you have a problem, let me help you fix it, gets the most in returning customers. So basically it's reaching out to your clients. And if there is a problem, then work on it. And you know what I'm saying? Don't take it negatively. This is a positive, it's a positive opportunity where you can better your services to your clients. And then he also says when you really start making money and taking market shares, he talks about that with his company, that's when you really need to start watching your back, because like the bigger players, you know, they don't really care about you when you're just taking a little bit of the market. And I know that's true in the real estate. I know that, you know, when you start taking a lot of the shares of the business out there, that some of the big dogs get a little mad. At least I've been told. And then let's see. They believed that they were no worse. That he doesn't like the mindset a lot of companies or people have when working. They believe if they're no worse than their competitors, then they're doing fine. They never go above and beyond. And he believes in taking a business and going above and way beyond. And that's how he says he's been successful. It's not the hours that you put in, it's what you put into the hours. That's another great quote. And I think his father told him that. Yeah. The Happiness Advantage, the book, he suggests reading that. And he said he wished he would have read it a long time ago, which is the book that I'd like to read next. He talked about why it makes no sense to him. And when he said this, I was like, that is so true. We will give $30,000 in loans to a student for student loans, but when they get out of school and they actually want to try their ideas, they can't even get a loan for $5,000 to try to start. So he actually did start a corporation that helps young business entrepreneurs fresh out of college, which I think is an amazing idea, and it's true. It's completely true. We'll let them go into debt for learning, but we won't help them take the next step and grow it into something where it's making them money. Females are making 70% of the buying decisions in our economic world right now, which I thought was a great statistic. And he talks about the women that are on the board, in the least amount of women that serve on a board is in Italy. It's only 6% of women are, and then Norway leads it. And he said Italy's second to the worst. I thought those statistics were very interesting. And then he talked about how Google they hired an older, more established person to oversee the younger tech adults, kind of like a father figure. And he says that, you know, it takes all different, a lot of the millennials have this belief that, you know, oh, we're, not all, but some, that, you know, they're the fresh new and this is the way it's got to be. But his point is there's a place for everyone, and all those people are necessary to make teams work successfully. That the younger generation does need an older person with more experience to kind of be the level, you know, steady voice of reason sometimes. And then I also love, he talked about having companies. He's had multiple companies, and he said it's exactly like having a newborn child. The first one, something goes wrong and you're like, oh my gosh, they coughed, we need to get to the doctor right away. Second one, you're like, oh, they coughed, I wonder what's wrong. Third one, you're like, they'll be fine. He said it's exactly the same having a company. You know, if something goes wrong, you're just like, oh my gosh, with the first company. And I think that's so true, even in real estate. I mean, when things, the longer we're in the business, you know, it's hard, it's much harder to get ruffled, or, I mean, there's really literally nothing, knock on wood, that stresses me out like it did when I was first in the business. So, and one thing when Ellen was talking about his parents, and I didn't take this in my notes, but I remember it in his book, that he talked about, he had taken money from his father. Do you remember this part of the book? He was taking money, and he was buying stuff in the store, and basically the store owner said, hey, just want you to know your son's been buying all this stuff. I wonder where he's getting all the money. And instead of his father just belittling him in front of the store owner, he stood up to the guy. I think it was a guy. I don't remember if it was a guy or a woman, and said, how dare you accuse my son of something like this? And he said that made more of an impression on him than if his father would have belittled him in front of that person, because his father stood up on his behalf. And you know what I'm saying? And so, and he knew his father knew. And the fact that his father stood up for him, even though he did something horribly wrong, he said that changed him forever. Like, it made him want to be a better person instead of being punished in front of that person. So I thought that was interesting, and Ellen reminded me of that. So that's my take on that.
Yeah.
Yeah, I remember that too. And when I'm getting some feedback, I'm trying to turn this down a little. What I feel sometimes happens with parents is sometimes, I mean, I just feel like sometimes parents almost feel this pressure to look good, you know, and that's why they do what they do sometimes. But yeah, I thought that was a really powerful example. And that kind of ties in a little bit to, there were 2 TED Talk videos that I watched about Mr. Branson. One of them was, oh God, what was it? 30,000 feet above something. And it was really interesting. It was kind of an interview with him. But the other one that I thought was the most interesting was about how he uses offenders, people who've served time in prisons, in his company. He goes out of his way to hire them, and he just has this philosophy that everybody deserves a second chance, and that he himself got a second chance, and he even speaks to how he feels that there's like an inequity in our society, that because he came from money and his parents were able to mortgage their house to put up the bond is the only reason he didn't go to prison, and it's the only reason why he's standing here today owning, you know, 17 companies worth billions of dollars, because he had the financial means to have that second chance. But that basically some of his employees that were offenders are the most loyal, the most productive, and he really encourages other companies to do the same. And I thought that was very, I find that extremely admirable. When I was listening to the book, the 2 things that kind of stood out the most to me is there was, I think it was like the 2nd or the 3rd chapter, and it was a really long chapter. It was over an hour. And really, I mean, the main point of the whole chapter was the importance of listening. I thought, how interesting is that, you know? And then the other one is when he talks about the 2 most important words in the English language, please and thank you, and how seldom they're used and how powerful they can be. And, you know, instead of just saying, hey, this report isn't what I need it to be, you need to do it over again, just starting your email with, thank you for getting this report to me on time. Here's what it needs to have. So those were probably 2 that stood out to us from the book. We got dogs, we got water, you know.
Okay, so one of the things like that sticks out is the striving for excellence, right? When I write my gratitude, I always put, I provide extraordinary service, going above and beyond, not just doing what you're told, but taking ownership of the task and the responsibility. It goes back to being responsible. You know, I am responsible, right? I am not a victim. So with that, making the process simple and smooth, right? Making our real estate process for our clients simple and smooth. when you eliminate drama and emotion and you can be that calming force, you do become the leader because you make it simple and smooth. So I used to be, being the expressive that I am, be extremely complicated and way more emotional than I've trained myself to be different. Recognizing the value in simplicity and smooth and control, emotional control. So one of the things we were talking about, Teresa, too, is about the confrontation. Like when there's a problem, like, and I relate this to my business, obviously, right? When there's a problem, able to confront, like, well, like confront with love, basically, you know? The mindset that I have about confrontation is you got to stick with it. Like, I think that oftentimes people hide from the confrontation or back away from it, and not even fear the client, but fear the confrontation itself, right? And so what I have found is that when you tackle the problem like head on and you're right there, you call, you're following up, you're persistent, and did it get done? Okay, I want to make sure we're clear. Are you happy now? Do you understand? Do you have any questions? It's like that service, that extraordinary, even when things are bad, the follow through, and it's amazing what that follow through can transition into. You know, it ultimately can mean, you know, it's money in your pocket when you have that type of persistence, and it comes to being able to confront and follow through. You know what I mean? So, okay, and then the complacency issue, you know, he talks about not being complacent, going above and beyond. I mean, that's, Mike talks to us about that all the time, you know, not being complacent. That mindset is a complacency mindset, and he doesn't have that, right? So, simple, smooth, confrontation were the things that popped up, you know, confront with love, not being complacent, going above and beyond, be efficient in doing things, right? It's not about, oh, I'm a hard worker. It's about, you know, being efficient, productive, accomplishing the goal. And then simplicity. I'm continuing to work on simplicity. And one thing that sticked out in that part is that your physical environment is a direct reflection of your mental environment. Your physical environment is a direct, and so simplifying my physical environment is a direct correlation to my mental organization, my mental capacity, the ability to expand that and to grow it. So anyways, those are the little things that, and I love about, you know, Mike always tells us that 70% of the decision, you know, he said the women, right, make the decisions. He was saying that, right, these statistics, he always says the woman is the ultimate decision maker, you know, and we see that time and time again, right, in our own business. Yeah. So yeah, that's basically, you know, the process of getting better.
The bottom line is women are the best leaders. They're the best salesmen. They're the best decision making.
Yeah.
Just kidding.
Tara, are you off mute already?
Yeah, I'm off.
Okay, cool. So anyway,
I was just getting some feedback when I had it not muted, so that's all. But cool. Well, yeah, I mean, I think Richard Branson's pretty fascinating man. I mean, what billionaire isn't? And I definitely want to tune into that Tim Ferriss podcast and hear, you know, the mindset that came out of the whole Neck Island disaster. You know, the tragic damage in the Caribbean. So you guys want to read the happiness advantage next?
Yeah, so it's Tim Ferriss podcast. Did it just happen?
Yeah,
I gotta find it.
I gotta figure out how to.
Oh yeah.
Oh, here it is.
And Teresa, I could send it to you, the link, but I want to say it's Tim's most recent podcast.
Was it 2 days ago? It says there's one.
A couple days ago. Yep.
Okay, I'll listen to that.
Ellen,
Hmm?
will you send it to me?
Yeah,
Oh,
will you
yes,
just put it on
I
our
will.
book club link? You know, Bianca, I love the what you talked about with confrontation too, because that's what I found. People want to avoid it, and I think I'm an expressive also, and so there's a lot of emotion in it. And sometimes when there's confrontation, I used to want to avoid it because of just the emotional aspect of it. And taking the emotion out of the transactions and the business. I mean, obviously still having empathy for the client, but not taking on that emotion so we can stay clear-minded. And so that's why I so agree with you. It's like, okay, well, I still think back to that book that we just, when we did the biographies, and she says, the lady from Shark Tank, she said, shoot the dog early.
Yeah.
Don't put it off. Do it, get it done, and state the facts. It is what it is.
Move on.
Yeah, and move on. And oh my gosh, that has made such a huge difference, because it kind of starts to fester. I mean, you know what I mean? And then it becomes even more emotional. And if you just do it, take care of it, state the facts, move on, it's so much easier and better. And now I practice it so much, it just comes more naturally. And so when you find people that are hesitant to face confrontation, I like to encourage them, like, hey, look, you know what? This is just the way it is, and we're going to get through it. And these are the facts. We'll move on. These are the choices of what has happened. So yeah, that's made a huge difference. So I like that you brought that up.
I feel it's almost like a mental clutter. And it's stinky garbage that stays in your mind. And you have to be able to get rid of it as soon as possible to be able to recycle your mental patterns.
Oh, yeah.
To refresh, to receive. You know what I mean? I've been really paying attention to the holding on of mental patterns, especially because, you know, like as I'm working through eliminating scarcity mindset, limiting beliefs about, you know, finance and abundance, and I'm paying attention to those things. So.
You know, that's interesting that you say that, because when you were talking about how, like, the mental is or the physical environment is a reflection of your internal mental state. Like, what I was thinking about is, I believe that. I believe that's true, because definitely different times, you know, when I'm feeling really clear, my own reflects that. And like, I open up with like all these papers, you know, and really, I think it has to do with thinking that for some reason I'm going to need it again, as opposed to, okay, here's a piece of paper, it goes immediately in the shredder or the recycler or whatever, you know. But yeah, just saying, cycling through. I guess it has to do with staying in the present moment. Like, in this moment, yeah, I think this is my prospective, but once I'm done, I don't need it, run away, right?
Good point.
You guys, can I share with you something? I had saved every tax return since I began my career, okay? And they were all piled up in this box. Check it out. See that box there? They were all piled up in this box, right? And when I got my assistant, like right about a month ago, one of the things that I wanted to do was put everything in a scan file for that box. You guys, for the past, honestly, it's been a long time. For the past, I would say a good 3 years, I literally have decluttered my life. And I still need to do more. But it's the most freeing thing to be able to do, to not keep things you don't need. And as we get older, we collect more. So, I mean, decluttering, and I'm telling you, it's just the most amazing. I literally decluttered my father. I went and visited my father this weekend. He has this little 1-bedroom house. I swear to God, a big black trash bag. I decluttered everything. We are done here, and I'm on mental clutter. Be gone. You know, so it's important. It really is.
Yeah.
I've been working on that too lately. I want to declutter and get rid of everything. It is freeing. It's very freeing. Yeah.
Well, have you ever heard the saying, 2 moves are as good as a fire?
More like 5, probably.
Yeah, probably more like 5. But yeah, I almost feel like it'd be nice to move like every 3 years, because when you move, you just get rid of, you know, so many things. And then when you move in, like I moved into the house, I had nothing. Well,
Or divorce. Divorce is as good as a fire.
Yeah, one divorce. Well, actually, you know what? Okay, I'm going to tell you guys a little secret here. So actually, that was like a huge inside joke from my high school years. As me and my girlfriend read that quote, you know the old saying, 2 moves are as good as a fire. We'd never heard it before in our lives. So for the next 4 years, anytime anything would happen, we would go, you know the old saying, 2 moves are as good as a fire. So it must be in my psyche.
Yeah. So, okay, so what book are we going to read next, girls?
Well, Richard Branson recommended The Happiness Advantage. He said that he really wished he would have read it, what, 10 years earlier, 20 years earlier? And it looks good to me. It's 7 hours.
I've seen a lot about it, and I've never read it, so I would love to read it if that's okay. I mean, if we can do it. It's a 7-hour book, so that's not too bad.
Yeah.
Compared to Richard's 11-hour.
Okay. So Happiness Advantage, and who wrote it?
Let me pull it back up.
Sean Anchor.
Yeah, ACHOR. Sean Anchor. Acre. Is it Acre?
Cool. All right. So we'll see you guys next week.
Okay.
Bye.
Bye from Kansas City.